Terrified, I stepped up to the window of the gym. It was all of my photos from every angle. There were even photos of me coming out of the bathroom. So they followed me even when I was at home. Everything went dark. It just didn't fit in my head. I stretched sweetly from the morning sunlight. Today, according to the plan, was one of my favorite trainings. The day promised to be wonderful. I picked up the phone and froze for a second. A message from Dan popped up on the screen. Him again? Dan is a guy who suggested dating me several times back in sports college. We studied together in the basketball section. To be honest, I might have tried, but then I had other interests. And then I just got tired of his persistence. It seems that after college, he got a job as a basketball coach at a boys' school. And we only texted a couple of times. So I was very surprised to see a text from him. Hi, I'm sick. And there's a tournament coming up at my school. He wrote, could you replace me at work? I'm sure you're still playing great. I owe you. Smiley. Was written in the text. I put the phone down. Although I already decided for myself that I would agree, I didn't have much luck with my job after college. That evening, I was already walking to the school gym. It would seem nothing unusual, but I kept hearing enthusiastic whispers behind my back. It seems that the boys were very impressed with such a replacement coach. I won't hide it, I liked it. The training started and I introduced myself, but the boys didn't even seem to hear my name. They all as one devoured my body with their eyes. Wow. I certainly didn't expect such close attention, but I was flattered. What can I say? It seems that they had a big problem here in the school with female teachers. So the boys lost their minds. Finally, the training was over. Such interest from the boys was still a pretty thing. But I had no idea that this was not all. They literally surrounded me and wouldn't let me pass. Hey, give me some room. Each of them asked me something, how often I trained, etc. And one even asked what my breast size was. Why would you want to know? Somehow, I dispersed the crowd of onlookers and locked myself in the locker room. I would never have thought that you just need to work one day at a boys' school to raise self-esteem. All the time I was in college, I tried to pay attention to my studies, so now such close attention was pleasant to me, and even a novelty. Time passed, but after one of the training sessions, during which the boys again almost fought for my attention, something strange happened. I went into the locker room, but I couldn't find my favorite sports top in the locker. Strange. Because I remembered exactly that I brought it. Upset, I went home without finding it. But the next day, the story repeated itself. I didn't find my new sneakers in my locker. No, it was not funny anymore. I was about to go to the principal to complain about everything that was happening. I suddenly found something else in the locker, a small envelope with a heart. Sensing something was wrong, I opened it. Yes, in it one of the school children anonymously confessed his love for me. But to be honest, today it even annoyed me. There should be some kind of limits. It was already late, so I decided to reschedule my visit to the principal for tomorrow. Tired, I was already approaching my house, but suddenly, I was almost stunned. My whole yard was covered with the same envelopes. There were hundreds of them. With trembling hands, I opened one by one, and the students wrote in them in different handwriting. That they literally idolized me. No, this was already some kind of madness. Maybe I was in over my head. It's decided. I was definitely going to the principal tomorrow. Suddenly, I heard some rustling behind me. They were my students. I recognized them right away. So it was you who set this up. The boys ran away. I rushed after them. Are they running back to school? They knew some shortcut. So I fell behind. I was walking to the school building, but suddenly froze from a nasty realization. Groups of boys whom I was training came up to it every now and then. They smiled mysteriously and headed to the gym, and there was already some strange light flickering. I swallowed nervously. A bad feeling stirred inside. I carefully walked under the windows at the school, constantly looking around so that no one would notice me, and approached the window. What I saw there made me jump up. The whole hall was covered to the top with my photos from all angles. There were even photos of me coming out of the bathroom. So they followed me even when I was at home? Everything went dark. It just didn't fit in my head. But then I stepped closer to the window and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. It was me in the very center of the hall. More precisely, a doll. My exact copy. They put my favorite top on this doll and made my copy have such big breasts that it just stretched. Thank you for the compliment, of course. But this was definitely some kind of nonsense. The boys, as if enchanted, kept coming up to it, putting offerings, various trinkets that they had been stealing from me all this time. Hairbands, dirty socks. I think they even took the napkins I used out of the school cafeteria trash. I barely stifled a cry. It just can't be true. At some point I couldn't stand it. I turned around and ran home as fast as I could. I locked myself in the house and couldn't sleep all night. I wanted it all to just be a strange dream. But no. The next morning, my yard was still strewn with love letters. I immediately quit school. Let Dan do what he wants. His students are just some maniacs. I even avoided the roads to this damn place now. But it didn't stop there. I still found letters and gifts at home. I was starting to feel like I was crazy. Maybe it was time to file with the police. But what was the corpus delicti? Not having a clear plan, I went to the city. First, I needed to at least relax. I was already entering the subway when suddenly my phone vibrated in my pocket. Cautiously, I looked at the screen. Another message from Dan. Hello. How are you? It's time to pay for the work done, isn't it? He wrote. My tension only increased. What's going on anyway? In hysterics, I texted him everything I thought about him and his sectarian students. Why did he even offer me this job? Let's meet at the cafe. I'll explain everything. Dan suddenly replied. I was wary. What if he was some kind of maniac himself? But on the other hand, he invited me to a crowded place. No. I just needed an explanation for all this nonsense. Half an hour later, I was sitting in front of Dan and couldn't stop shaking. But he only politely treated me to coffee and began his story. Dan awkwardly looked me straight in the eye and admitted that his offers to date me at college were not just entertainment. He had loved me all these years. Only me. And even after we graduated, he couldn't forget about me. But after so many refusals, Dan was afraid to talk to me about it again. I listened to it all with bated breath. I could not imagine that he was so much attracted to me. But now, completely desperate, Dan decided to take a risky step. It was his last chance to attract my attention. He just met a theater director, quite famous in our city. Then I began to understand what he was getting at. I turned out that Dan, along with the director, came up with this whole performance just to show how important I was to him. He encouraged the students to pretend that they idolized me, but at some point, it just got out of control. The boys refused to leave the role. I was so shocked by what I heard that I couldn't utter a word. Dan kept apologizing and saying that he didn't want to scare me. It was the director who insisted on the idea. Dan just begged to start all over again, at least just to communicate like before. It was obvious that he was really very remorseful. I still couldn't put my thoughts together. Dan had already quietly said, "Sorry, I'll never bother you again," and was about to leave. But then I stopped him. You know what? I told him. I even liked it at first. All the fact that the boys got out of control is not your fault. Dan didn't seem to believe that I was actually saying this. But I already made my decision. It was obvious that he had spent all his efforts to impress me, and he succeeded. Albeit by such a strange method. Shall we go on a date tomorrow? I smiled shyly. Only this time, no strange envelopes. Dan looked like the happiest man in the world at that moment, and just nodded silently. After a couple of weeks, we were already a couple. After all, what other girl can boast that her boyfriend organized a cult in her honor? Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Nicole and I'm 18 years old. Tell me, do you have any special features in your appearance? Something you're embarrassed about or your parents? Watch this video to the end and learn how to get iron hands and how to learn to live with them. I made the doctors and attendants' jaws drop at my birth. My right forearm was missing. I don't know exactly why, but in any case, I haven't had a right hand all my life. I was wildly shy about it and begged my parents to give me a prosthesis, so that I was like other normal children. And what did I hear in response? Daughter, no, we don't have the money for this, so you can't. My mother tried to convince me that this is normal, that you can adapt to everything. Of course, she can adapt, because she doesn't not have a hand. I was bullied at school. And not girls, they were great. But the guys constantly teased me from a distance and called me ugly. Several times I got into fights, and even managed to kick someone in the neck. Then, my parents would lecture me and tell me that this was proof that I did need a prosthesis. Like, they will only tease me more, and in a fight it will break and Right, there's no money to change it. I know what was behind it. You're already weird. Your hands will attract attention. Why do you need a prosthesis if we still have to feed you with the spoon for the rest of our lives? Well, have your dreams ever come true in the most unexpected way? Once, I was hit by a car. I don't remember how it happened. I think I was crossing the road to green, and then I woke up in the hospital, and my mother was sitting next to me, crying, and my father was crying too. And instead of my hand, I had a stump wrapped in a bandage. The doctor explained everything to me. It turned out that the car did not just collide with me, it literally ran over my arm, and it was impossible to restore it. Can you imagine how absurd this is? The first thing I thought was, oh, my last hand! But, well, now you're not going to get away with it. I pleaded with my mother, made responsible arguments to my father. I said that artificial hands would improve their lives as well as mine, and that it was better at least with artificial hands than without them at all. They couldn't argue with me now. My mother asked me in a quavering voice how much it would cost. My father gasped when he saw the bill, but they were still under the influence of my sad hospital appearance, and quickly processed everything. The installation took a long time. I took even longer to get used to them. But there came a time when I could write my own name by hand, and I was almost mad with joy. I was told not to load my hands, so that the adaptation of the prosthesis would be more successful. But I couldn't stop running and touching everything. I have hands! Real, my own! Yay! Has it ever happened to you that your relatives did not understand your joys and sorrows? My parents, for some reason, did not share my joy. My father would praise me sourly, and my mother would turn away and almost start crying. I didn't know what was wrong with them. Were they so afraid of my hands? Would they sacrifice my hands for their own comfort? What did I need to do to make my parents love me the way I had become? Resentments accumulated for a long time, and they had to find a way out, the normal way out. For example, I went swimming at school. I had to get used to a new sport and initially swim in the paddling pool, but then I started to achieve small success. I also went to therapy sessions to develop my hands, and that's where I met Charlie. Charlie had had surgery on his leg and was also getting used to the prosthesis. I shared my experience with him. We started communicating with each other, and later we realized that we liked each other. And parents, they didn't understand me at all. Dad treated me like a little girl. He tried to feed me with a spoon, didn't trust me even to carry a cup to my room, as if I had 0 hands instead of 2 iron ones. My mother became apathetic. I thought, okay, you don't want to believe in me? I'll make you. The swimming was going well, and if I could get into the competition, then would they drop the act? I really started to train more. And yes, I already achieved great results in 2 months. I was invited to the Paralympic youth competitions. The very first of them was held on a brand new pool. I searched the crowd for the eyes of my friends and family. Charlie and his mom came, and Dad came. Only my mother wasn't there. It hit me in the gut. My vision blurred and my legs gave way, and I almost fell. I got a good track and was able to set myself up to win, but I only had one thought in my head. She doesn't want to see me? Even now? Even when I go for a medal? I didn't lose, although I was in the most depressed mood. We all went to the cafe together, but when we were alone with Charlie, he told me something that startled me and almost killed me on the spot. My mom called him and told him to stop messing with my head. He didn't want to tell me about it before the competition, so as not to spoil the mood. But since my mom just didn't show up, what would you do if you found out that your mother had forbidden the boy to see you? Would you get angry? Start yelling? Would you try to talk peacefully? I almost immediately went home and made a huge fuss. My mother also started yelling at me, and in a fit of anger, she blurted out, "You'll never be normal. Don't lie to yourself." I said, "All right," and started packing. It only took me 15 minutes to get ready, and then I just went out with my bags, and I took the ground transport to Charlie's. He was terrified when he saw me. He said I was putting too much weight on my hands and helped me carry things to their house. My mom and dad started calling me. Eventually, I picked up the phone and told them everything. I threatened to sue for my emancipation if they kept calling me, and I didn't answer the phone again. Until the end of the school year. I almost gave up on the exams, but I still passed them and even got a diploma. After the ceremony, the kids and I decided to have fun, have a few drinks, and I was so relaxed that I answered the phone without looking. It was Dad. He said just a few words to me. "Your mother has cancer." I didn't believe it at first. It was very clever to make me come back for fear that my mother would be ill. Well, it worked out. I rushed home and immediately realized this was not blackmail, but a real disease. The tumor was launched to such a stage that the doctor decided that the leg would have to be removed, and quite urgently. You should have seen my mother at that moment. She laid there all night looking at the ceiling, and then she got hysterical. Mom broke the service, crying and shouting that now she was a nobody, a pathetic, helpless invalid, and now she would never have a normal full life. I was angry. I'm not a fool, and I knew that she was talking about me too. I sharply grabbed her by the shoulders, slapped her, you know how great it turns out with Cyberhand, and growled, "Okay, calm down." My mother was shocked enough to stop talking, and I spoke. I was all talked out. I told her I'd just fucking graduated from high school, that I had a class in swimming and a cool guy who loved me, lots of friends, my first job that I got thanks to my prosthetics. I didn't have a damn problem with my prosthetics. All my problems were because of my mother. Here, I admit, it was ugly, but it sobered my mother like a second slap in the face. She looked down at her leg again. She said she didn't know how to live like this. She'd been normal all her life. I replied that the main thing was just to live. My mother didn't believe me, but my words helped her. Her leg was actually removed, and she was sobbing, holding my dad and me by the hand. But then we raised money and paid for her to have a prosthesis installed. My mother was actually starting to learn to walk again. She complained to me every night on the phone, that she couldn't look at her reflection without being disgusted. I calmed her down and told her that she was very beautiful. And Dad told her too. Recently, my mother went out for the first time in shorts, and I was happy with her little victory. By the way, where did she go in her shorts? To watch my competition, of course. It's amazing how much garbage people have in their heads, and how it can ruin their lives and the lives of their loved ones. It's amazing how things change if you help a person clean up a little. My mother and I were able to overcome our prejudices. Look at your relatives too. Maybe mutual understanding is just around the corner? Did you like the video? Put a like so that YouTube will show it to your friends. And by the way, did you remember to subscribe to our channel and send us your new freaky stories?